I think we can all agree that Plants vs. Zombies 2 isn't really the game that we wanted it to be. EA's presence has ultimately tainted the game in multiple different ways, and it'll never be as good as the original. Despite this, there are still some nuggets of enjoyment here and there, even if there is more frustration around every corner. So I was still able to find a couple ideas from this game, and as a continuation from my last list, I wanted to count down my favorite world plants in this game for my final list of 2023. Since there is an incredibly massive lineup of plants in this game, most of which are obtained by collecting seed packets nowadays, the rules here are more important this time. I'll only be talking about plants that are obtained from completing adventure levels. Any premium, gemium, or seedium plants will not be included. And I also chose to not let any synergies with premiums be a factor, so Repeater won't be getting bonus points because of Torchwood, nor will Charred Guard be getting bonus points because of Aloe. Since recharge times are a lot more inconsistent in this game compared to the first game, that will be a minor factor this time. The function and price will also be a factor, as well as its plant food effect. The one thing I am not letting be a factor is leveling. Being able to level up plants is an interesting idea, but the game wasn't really made with it in mind. I, however, have gotten way too deep into it back when it first became a thing, and so there isn't really any turning back. So even though I'm using leveled up plants in this footage, I'm not letting that affect the ranking, so DPS and HP will only be minor factors, and I won't be looking at proper statistics either. And just like last time, I did my best to include plants with different traits, so I didn't end up with any rehash in my script. This may very well be my most loosely put together and controversial list yet, but I did my best to make it concise. With all of that said, let's get started. My name is Phoenix, and this is my top 15 world plants in Plants vs. Zombies 2. Let's go. Ever since I picked this game up again a couple months ago, a lot of my opinions on some plants have changed. Admittedly, some plants were still trash, but I came to realize I slept on a lot of plants that were actually really good. One such example is Snapdragon, as despite his limited range, he's very consistent with his damage and can actually be a very valuable asset early in the game. Snapdragon is the second plant you obtain in Pirate Seas and breathes a wave of fire in a 2x3 area in front of it. This fire will damage anything in it, so it's great at thinning out crowds and taking down lower HP zombies, so your plants in the back can reach the tougher ones. Snapdragon is great to use behind walls, but not great to use with ice plants as, just like the first game, fire and ice damage does not mix. And as an added bonus, Snapdragon can now warm nearby plants and melt ice in frostbite caves, and considering that you'll have this guy long before then, it'll make that world about 5% less annoying. Pair that with a devastating plant food effect that incinerates anything in a 3x3 grid in front of it, and only costing 150 sun, and Snapdragon is a very useful plant early. However, he does fall off quite a bit once you start to get through Neon Mixtape Tour, and after that the zombies can pose a direct threat to him, so he isn't going to last forever. Now if only Pepperpole didn't recharge so slowly. At number 14 is another plant that can play a similar role to Snapdragon, but a bit more efficiently this time. While Snapdragon can damage anything directly in front of it, this next plant isn't limited with short range and doesn't interfere with ice plants. Next up is Lightning Reed, which may have lower DPS than Snapdragon, but can cover a lot more ground. Lightning Reed will zap any zombie that is in either its lane or the two adjacent lanes, meaning two of these guys can cover all 5 lanes early. In addition, the lightning will chain between multiple zombies, allowing it to damage several zombies at once, but it also serves to humiliate easily some of the most frustrating zombies in the game, namely Chicken Wrangler and Jester. Being able to hit multiple zombies at once means that chickens have little chance of breaking through a wall of lightning reeds, and since the lightning is a non-solid projectile, it can't be thrown back in your face by Jester. Trust me, this isn't the only time I'll be celebrating when Jester eats dirt. And its plant food effect is interesting, as it creates a lightning cloud that flies around to zap zombies. However, I'm not a fan of the fact that its target is random. Lightning Reed can do a better job at filtering out weaker zombies than Snapdragon, especially since it's cheaper at 125 sun, but once again it tends to fall off late game, most notably Big Wave Beach. I also question why you can't plant it on water, even though it's based off a plant that normally grows in water. I guess it wouldn't be good for the fish. One of the most slept on plants in the game also happens to be one of the most incorrectly used. Much like Time Warp being mispronounced by everyone. It's thyme. Like the herb. Not thyme. But putting my OCD, or whatever it is, aside, Guacodile is another misused plant, though it admittedly isn't as frustrating as it could have been. Guacodile is commonly used as a 125 sun cost Peashooter with a slightly slower fire rate, but not only can it shoot seeds, it will instantly rush down the entire lane of zombies when threatened. Guacodile can be used as an instant plant that can deal heavy damage to larger threats and anything behind them, but one use I also found for it was placing them in column 3 to instantly neutralize imps thrown by Gargantuars. Football Mech and any other high HP threat can be taken down in a few hits, and since Guacodile recharges fast, it's easy to spam it as long as you have enough sun. And its plant foot effect is great too, spawning 2 extra Guacodiles that charge forward as well as throwing back any zombie directly in front of it. So Guacodile is a great plant to provide either minor chip damage or using it as a good instant use plant, but the biggest drawback is how late in the game you get it. Guacodile is the 4th of 5 plants you obtain in Big Wave Beach, so until you get it, it'll be difficult to take down heavy threats with only Cherry Bomb up until this point. Also, do not assume that Guacodiles act like a second lawnmower. They're similar, but much weaker. Despite that, Guacodile is still a great plant when used correctly, but please do not make me write an instruction manual for him. I really should not have to. Gatling Pea may not have made it back into PvZ 2 until we got an absurd number of variations across the international and Chinese versions of the game. Although we did get a pretty good substitute for it, which is both unique and very well executed. Peapot is another plant that is honestly very underrated, and it's honestly very sad. Peapot is the 3rd plant that you unlock in Wild West, and essentially is the epitome of those hacks where people just stack plants all onto one tile. Peapot allows you to plant up to 5 of them on the same tile, and each time it'll add 1 head in the pot itself. Each head functions like a normal pea shooter, meaning you can have essentially 5 pea shooters all on a single tile. This means you would be able to just cram all of your firepower for the row into a single tile, although it's far from a perfect plant. Conversely, since Peapot costs 125 sun, stacking 5 will cost 625 sun, making it the most expensive plant in the game, even more so than Wintermelon and Banana Launcher. Secondly, if the pod gets eaten, any heads inside will be gone as well, and getting a full row of these guys takes quite some time. And lastly, its plant food effect isn't great, as it only spits 5 large peas, which only hit 1 zombie at a time, making it not a good choice for crowds. So it's far from perfect, but it's still a very well condensed shooter, and it does its job very well. It makes for some creative strategies, especially with minecarts or planked lanes. Is it comfy in that pod? Not all worlds are created equal when it comes down to the quality of the lineup of plants. Some worlds like Neon Mixtape Tour and Modern Day had pretty lousy plants overall. However, other worlds had some really great lineups of plants as well. This will only be the first of many plants you see from Jurassic Marsh. Primal Peashooter may be another plant that struggles with large crowds, but it makes up for that with its utility. Primal Peashooter is the first plant you get in Jurassic Marsh, and it shoots heavy peas that can stun or knock zombies backwards. Knowing that the dinosaurs in Jurassic Marsh all move zombies forward in different ways, pushing them back will help even the playing field, especially with 2 rows. Primal Peashooter is a bit pricey at 175 sun, but when used right is one of a few plants capable of indefinitely stalling zombies so long as they aren't bully. On top of that, its plant foot effect is also very effective. It shoots 5 heavy peas that are guaranteed to knock back zombies, and it'll also knock back and damage clumps of them as well, giving them a bit of crowd control in this case. It's such a shame that it doesn't counter Pterodactyl. Oh well, I guess. If you were to ask me what my favorite plant was back in 2017, I would have said that this was it with no hesitation. But since I'm putting my middle school bias aside and thinking more logically, I came to the realization that despite the fact that Red Stinger is very effective and fun to use, it's far from the best in the game. Red Stinger is the first plant you unlock in Lost City, and is the only straight shooting plant that actually can function in multiple ways. Red Stinger has 3 different modes, depending on where you place it. In columns 1 to 3, it will focus on attack, in columns 4 to 6, it'll be half attack and half defense, and in columns 7 to 9, it'll retreat into its bud and only serve as a defensive plant. I typically reserve this for attack, and it's a very effective plant when placed in the back, allowing you to use it in synergy with Snapdragon or Bonk Choy up front. It may cost 150 sun, but it's still worth it to make 2 or even 3 columns of them. And its plant foot effect is great as well, as it fires a powerful red beam, penetrating every zombie in its lane and also slowing them down. It's super effective, however, is also the only way that Red Stinger can deal with crowds at all. You may be seeing a pattern where all of the effective plants with no crowd control are all crowding at the bottom. And while they can hit hard against a butt ton of bucketheads, they will get overwhelmed eventually. To think that you get Red Stinger so early. It's actually shockingly effective late game despite being in the 5th world. Who knew it would sting this much? Probably the most slept on plant in the entire game, this next plant is also when we start seeing proper crowd control again. It also may be the most heavily skewed because of level up, however even before then I still found that it was a severely underrated plant. And it just so happens to be the first one you get after the tutorial. Bloomerang may be seen as the least deserving plant to be on the best plants list, let alone in single digits, but I found myself coming back to this plant over and over and over again in several situations across the space-time continuum. Bloomerang is the very first plant you unlock after completing the tutorial and transitioning to Ancient Egypt. It'll toss a boomerang that will hit up to 3 zombies or grid items, then double back, hitting them all the second time. In terms of raw DPS, it is a bit lacking, but it's another great plant for thinning out crowds, on top of just being fun to use. This may be my own bias talking, but I do not deny that I've enjoyed using this guy ever since the very beginning. And on top of that, its plant foot effect is even better at dealing with crowds. It'll throw a flurry of boomerangs in all directions that will go all the way to the edges of the map no matter how many zombies are in the way. The only two things holding it back is that it does cost 175 sun to plant, which is a bit expensive. And it also can't hit Jester without help, though it will catch the boomerang as it's thrown back. Also, some may say that Aki is just as deserving of this spot, and while I certainly don't disagree with that, I've found Bloomerang to be more consistent and reliable in multiple ways. Call me crazy, but I've never disliked this guy. Although, despite that, there is one plant that is objectively better in every way. Is it just me, or is Far Future the most fun world in the game? It's the perfect balance of challenge and fairness, and has some of the most unique plants across the whole game. And Laser Beam may be obtained early, but arguably is one of the best shooters in the main game. I mentioned how Bloomerang was overshadowed by one other plant, and Laser Beam is that one. Laser Beam is the first plant you unlock in Far Future, and will shoot a laser that penetrates every zombie in front of it. No matter what it is, it will get hurt by this when it fires. It is a bit expensive at 200 sun, but that's about its only disadvantage it has to Bloomerang. It'll damage absolutely everything in front instead of only 3 targets, and just like Lightning Reed, the lasers are non-solid projectiles, so Jester can do nothing about them. Chickens get fried, excavators cannot block the shots, no one can counter it. Its DPS isn't the highest in the game, but that all changes when plant foot is used. Laser Beam will send a massive laser down the whole lane in front of it, essentially like using Jalapeno in said lane. It can be seen as a counterpart to Snapdragon, but like Jalapeno instead of Cherry Bomb. Laser Beam has tons of longevity throughout the game and remains a great attacker, but we're only halfway through this list. Up next is a plant that has held up across pretty much its entire life, and has since become the best plant across the whole game to start any level. Potato Mine, Chili Bean, and Stunyon are good, but Primal Potato Mine has always outclassed every single one of them. Primal Potato Mine is the 5th and final plant you unlock in Jurassic Marsh, and honestly for good reason. Every Primal plant could be a candidate for this list, as they're all upgrades over the original tutorial plants, but Potato Mine got quite a volatile upgrade. Primal Potato Mine will explode when stepped on, but instead of only a single tile, it'll explode in a 3x3 area. And on top of that, instead of taking about 12 or so seconds to arm, Primal Potato Mine takes only about 3. Add on a super cheap 50 sun cost and a recharge twice as fast as Cherry Bomb, this one plant is easily one of the most busted early level plants in the game. And just like Potato Mine, its plant foot effect will instantly arm itself as well as make 2 copies. But just like Guacodile, the big drawback behind Primal Potato Mine is just how late in the game you get it. Not to mention, it doesn't get a lot of time on the field before Big Wave Beach, meaning you'll only really get most of your use from this in modern day. However, Primal Potato Mine is absolutely busted, though I think I'll still keep Buttercup in my lineup. Staying in Jurassic Marsh one last time, I previously mentioned that Primal Peashooter is capable of indefinitely stalling zombies when used correctly, so it shouldn't be surprising that Primal Walnut is also capable of doing this, but in a much more reliable way. Primal Walnut is the second plant that you get in Jurassic Marsh and is a defensive plant with a fast recharge. Yes, you heard me right. Walnut takes 20 seconds to recharge after planting, but Primal Walnut only takes 5. Defensive plants are often not too useful due to their slow recharge, so a fast recharge really shows just how much Primal Walnut helps. Not to mention, it also has another useful property, being able to resist Gargantuar smashes. Primal Walnut will take about 4 smashes before crumbling, though its plant foot effect is a bit underwhelming. It gains armor like most other walls, and while that does double its HP, the armor only lasts for 1 Gargantuar smash. But the fast recharge and Gargantuar resistance makes up for this issue, and the only downside to all of these bonuses is a 25 sun cost increase. Primal Walnut only costs 75 sun, so combine that with a fast recharge and Walnut Aid, which you'll have way before this point, and you can effortlessly stall zombies for an unlimited amount of time so long as there isn't a massive dog pile. It's not super pretty, but it is incredibly tough. However, there is one more that shows up to it, on the opposite end of the timeline. 65 million years ago, we were treated to probably the toughest wall in the game. However, in 300 years from today, we will be treated to a strangely busted wall that's only a mere hologram. Infinite is a fan favorite and easily the best wall plant in the game, even better than any premium. Infinite is the 5th plant you unlock in Far Future, and is a holographic walnut with half health, but it will regenerate health after the zombies are done eating or defeated, all the way back up to full HP. Even if it's completely broken through, the projector will stay behind, ready to bring the nut back after a short time. So place 2 of these back to back and you'll have a near impenetrable wall outside of extreme conditions. And it also has a unique plant food effect, as instead of gaining armor, it'll put up a shield that covers all 5 lanes, which will force any zombie to stop and eat it. Explorer, Wizard, Excavator, Jetpack, Balloon, Octo, all of them stop to nom on the shield. And it has a lot of HP to boot, and is even the block Fisherman hooks. Big Wave Beach Day 28 is easily one of the most infamous levels in the game, and Infinite makes it so much more manageable thanks to its plant food. The only drawbacks are that it can still get smashed or burned if used haphazardly, but its cheap sun cost at 75 once again, and a recharge that is still faster than the regular Walnut, this plant can be a hands-free way to indefinitely stall zombies yet again. And it isn't even solid. I think it's fair to say that a lot of returning plants have not been anywhere near as useful as they were a lot stronger in the first game. Magnetshroom now only counters 2 special zombies, Puffshroom disappears after a while, Spike Rock can now only take 3 hits instead of 9, and the list just goes on. So it should surprise no one that despite the fact that Wintermelon is still strong like it used to be, it's not quite the best in the game. Wintermelon is the 7th and final plant you unlock in Wild West, and it does show as it's just as powerful as it used to be. Wintermelon will lob frozen watermelons that deal heavy splash damage to groups of zombies on top of chilling them, extinguishing flames, and slowing everything around. It's theoretically just as, if not even stronger than last time, as with its plant food, it launches a ton of melons in the air, 1 for each target, where they rain back down, doing even heavier damage and demolishing just about everything on the field. It's a very devastating move, even more so than the most explosive plants in the game. But of course, there are multiple drawbacks. The fast recharge is nice and all, but 500 sun is insanely expensive, though appropriate. However, Wintermelon cannot directly damage Jester or Parasol zombies, so it isn't anything that'll make any strategies airtight. Despite this, it still is a very strong plant in several situations, but there are more reliable choices for raw damage. While sun production isn't anywhere near as important as it used to be due to the fact that you can get an absolutely absurd amount in seconds this time around, when it actually does matter, it really matters. And of course, just like last time, Twin Sunflower ends up being the best option no matter what. Oddly enough, Twin Sunflower and Wintermelon are the only 2 plants on this list that were on the previous list as well. And I guess that's what happens sometimes. Oh well. Twin Sunflower is the 7th and final plant you unlock in Ancient Egypt, and essentially functions exactly how it used to, producing twice as much sun as a normal sunflower, which in this game is 100. And while it does recharge a bit slower than all of the other sun producers and costs 125 sun, making it tough to use in Dark Ages without help, in the long run, Twin Sunflower is once again the most efficient sun producer, and considering you unlock it so early, it can carry you through pretty much the entire game. Now this entry is admittedly more so based on preference, and any one of you could easily put Sunshroom or Primal Sunflower ahead of Twin. But Twin has not only been the most efficient, but also the most fun, oddly enough. It's easy to spam Primal Sunflower and especially Sunshroom, and that makes some levels a bit brainless. Twin, however, is not only more reliable in the long run, but also allows some levels to not end in about 30 seconds most of the time. And while its plant food is simply just to create a large burst of sun, it's an excellent move to set up any Endless Zone level in just about every world. Now where can I get those shades? There is no plant in this game that has caused my opinion to shift this drastically. I originally hated this plant, but nowadays I realize just how powerful it really is. And number 2, Bowling Bulb. I slept on this plant for about as long as I possibly could have, but only about a month or 2 ago did I realize that this is so absurdly strong that it can make a complete mockery of a ton of levels. Bowling Bulb is the 3rd plant you unlock in Big Wave Beach, and while it may be expensive at 200 sun, it ends up making up for that quite a bit. Bowling Bulb will roll 3 bulbs of different colors and sizes down its lane, which will bounce between targets, which can damage an unlimited number of targets so long as it's still on the field. Because it bounces around everywhere, any zombie that gets hit will take quite a bit of damage, and I think it can even hit multiple times. And 2 or 3 columns of these guys can absolutely demolish just about everything coming your way. And its plant food supercharges every bulb, dealing massive splash damage that also bounces around everywhere, which can possibly act as a full screen wipe if there's enough zombies on screen. However, the silver lining that keeps Bowling Bulb from being the best plant in the game is that it has some oddly strange downsides. Firstly, if you defend every lane evenly with them, the outer lanes will be less protected, as the bulbs can only bounce inwards. So the outer lanes can get overwhelmed, and the middles can be completely empty, so there's nothing that can hit the outer lanes at all. Also, absolutely do not use this guy against Jester, as you can very easily have your whole defense eliminated in seconds. Still though, that doesn't stop Bowling Bulb from absolutely bowling strikes in every level, though the gutter may need a bit of help. Fitting, isn't it? The edges are the problem areas. just like in real bowling.
I'll be honest, I really am not a fan of the shadow plants in modern day in the slightest. Not only did they feel strange and foreign, as it was a gimmick that wasn't introduced until now, but all of them either rely too much on synergies to be useful at all, or don't benefit much from the shadow buff at all. However, I and most others who still play this game can agree, there is one diamond in the roughest of rough. Duscloper may still need Moonflower to reach its full strength, but the sheer devastation caused by it in return more than makes up for it. Duscloper is the 4th plant you'll unlock in modern day, and is the 2nd to last plant you'll unlock throughout the entire adventure mode, only being followed by Grimrose for some reason. Duscloper will fling explosive buds down the lane, which can not only hit decently hard, but also deal splash damage. Powered up with Moonflower, and it can now attack 3 lanes, and the splash damage done is the same as a direct hit, meaning that any zombie unfortunate enough to get caught in the blast will take full damage, often not even getting a chance to get even remotely close to your defenses. And it's super cheap, relatively speaking, as it only costs 150 sun and takes about 10 seconds to recharge. You can set them up relatively quickly, and the more you place them, the more it'll help the Moonflowers as well. And then there's its plant food, where it sends 4 buds into the air which fall into a clump of zombies, exploding and doing quite a bit of damage to the whole group. Now some might point out Duscloper's apparent weakness, which would be Parasol and Jester Zombie. However, the splash damage that Duscloper can cause can damage them indirectly, usually more effective than hitting them directly. But it's so refreshing to see a solid projectile that can not only damage Jester, but completely dumpster him. Yes, he can still catch them, but if he's at all behind anyone, he can't, and will die before he gets any chance to. So in summary, Duscloper hits hard, can cover up to 3 lanes, completely destroys crowds at all times, and can actually damage Jester. So not only is it the best world plant in this game, but it's even better than just about every plant in the first game, and most Gemiums in this game, despite still needing Moonflower's help. With such a massive buff, Duscloper will for sure hold back any zombie all the way until dawn. Well, that list was certainly something, wasn't it? It was nice to at least get one list on Plants vs. Zombies 2 out of the way, and while I do still have a couple ideas left, that'll be for another time. But with that, it's time to bring this video to a close. If you enjoyed this video, then please be sure to leave a like and comment EA sucks down below so I know you made it to the end. If you'd like to see more from me in the future, then please be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new upload. Also, shortly after this video is uploaded, I'll place a link to a playlist of all of my countdown videos so you guys can watch them all if you'd like. My next list will be my most obscure one yet, as I rank some of the weapons in Terraria, but only the ones dropped by the Moonlord, and ranking them from my least favorite to my favorite. That'll be an interesting one to make, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. And of course, if you have a difference of opinion for this list, then be sure to leave it in a nice way in the comments below. That'll be it for me for this video, and for 2023, aside from a couple more small videos. So I will see you next time. Farewell.